Traditionally, when the sun is in Taurus, the sign of the builders, and the moon is full in Scorpio, Buddhist communities throughout the world commemorate the birth, enlightenment, and final nirvana, the nirvana of the Buddha. This celebration is known as Wesak. And today we celebrate that great occurrence. We want to take a teaching from the Buddha. It is found in volume 28, number 25 of the Pearls of Wisdom. It would be good for you to look up this pearl and spend some time, lots of time. For today we put on our boots, if you want to say it that way, to go deep with the teachings of Gautama about ourselves and our godliness. He starts out in this dictation by saying, "In the stillness of the night, there descends a flame." How many of the masters keep saying, talking about stillness, become still, become still, become still. In the center of the sun, it's stillness. When we really come down to it, consciousness is in stillness. We think when it's in stillness. The music of the day makes us go crazy. We have to get away and become still to listen to reality. Then he begins to talk about Abraham or Abram. He said, Abram saw that flame descending. He saw the smoking furnace. He saw the burning lamp. And beloved, it was given unto him to know God, for he rendered unto me the elements for the sacrifice. And thus it was an acceptable offering. What is he talking about? The furnace and the lamp and so on. In order to understand this, we really need to go back to get the information. It's found in Genesis chapter 15. I'd like to read just a few verses here so that you can understand what he's talking about. He said, after this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. But Abram said, O sovereign Lord, O sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless, and the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer the Damascus? And Abram said, you have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir. Then the word of the Lord came to him. This man will not be your heir, but a son coming from your own body will be your heir. Now, Abram was 100 years old at this time. And he would pretty much come to that point of saying, well, if it hasn't happened to this point, it probably won't happen. But the Lord said, Oh, no. He said he took him outside and said, "Look up at the heavens and count the stars, if indeed you can count them." Then he said to him, "So shall your offsprings be." Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. He also said to him, "I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to take possession of it." But Abram said, "O sovereign Lord, how can I know that I will gain possession of it? Isn't this just the way we are? No matter what the Lord promises, we have to come back and say, well, prove it to me." So the Lord said to him, "Bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon." Abraham brought all these to him, cut them in two, and arranged the halves opposite each other. The birds, however, he did not cut in half. Then birds of prey came down on the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. When the sun had set and darkness had fallen, a smoking fire pot with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. On that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram and said, "To your descendants, I give this land from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates." Obedience. He gave whatever was necessary. And he's going to be talking about Cain and Abel, and how Cain's gifts were not acceptable, but Abel's was. And then you will hear him say what we have just gone through. Your acceptable gift would be that which is not of the Christ within you. This is the point. So he said, Abram saw the flame descending. He saw the smoking furnace. He saw the burning lamp. And behold, it was given unto him to know God. For he rendered unto me the elements of the sacrifice. Whatever was asked of him, no matter what, he gave it. And it was the best that he could give. He said, remember, hearts. Remember the acceptable and unacceptable offering of Abel and Cain. Now, Cain was the firstborn, and he was a farmer. Abel was the secondborn, and he was a shepherd. He kept flocks. The reason Cain's was not acceptable, and he just brought some of his wheat or whatever it was for this gift. But Abel gave the first fruit, the firstborn, which was the highest part, and very high chosen. He gave the best. And so his was acceptable. Cain's wasn't. Isn't this often the case? When the offering plate comes by, we put in a couple of shillings or whatever. And Jesus demonstrated this by saying, see that woman over there? See, she only gave a couple pennies, but she gave more than the rich man who just threw in a couple of extras because she gave all she had. This is the kind of thing we're talking about here. And Cain was so so angry that his was not acceptable, that he invited Abel to go out in the field with him. And they went out there and he destroyed him. This again illustrates so much of what we see today. Thus, the great law is taught from the beginning that each one in his time is bidden to offer the sacrifice. And when it is acceptable sacrifice, the initiation is given, and the new name. So from Abram, it became Abraham. And who was Abraham? Who was Abram and then Abraham? It was our beloved El Morya. It was his life he's talking about here. He said, thus Abram became Abraham. Thus unto him was given my seed as the seed of Sodom and Gomorrah, for the seed of the cosmic Christ is one. It was a small thing, that sacrifice, requested in animal form, and the parts thereof. Yet so great was the fulfillment of the promise. Thus we see the unity of twin flames, sacrifice and obedience. Sacrifice and obedience. This is Gautama talking now. He said, cast then the unacceptable part of thyself into the flame. It shall prove to be the acceptable offering. Thus, having evacuated thy temple of the unwanted presence, the Lord of the world may enter. The seed of light and promise, the Christic seed, therefore transmitted through Abraham, so blessed, and blessed to become then your leader in this hour, who knows what it means to sharpen the minds of his chelas, to prepare each one with utter love and the firmness of the ruby sword that does not allow the chela to retain to himself that which must be offered. For there is an acceptable hour and an acceptable day as the cosmic selves and cycles turn, as the stars appear, auspicious, propitious. Blessed ones, it has been said of old, behold, now is the acceptable time. Now is the day of salvation. What is the meaning of the eternal now? It is not the forever waiting of the Lord, I can assure you. For I have taken the messenger into the point of timelessness to experience the utter collapse of time and suddenly the awareness that all that has occurred in time is in truth not real. For time is not in the point of reality. Therefore, why tarry and become the prisoner of time? Through karma, through inordinate desire and inordinate acts that offend me? For I am the one who is offended when you goest out of the line of reality. Do you not know the eternal youth of the saints and of the shining? It is because every act of love and light takes place in the timeless realm. May I say that again? Make sure you understand what I'm saying. It is because every act of love and light takes place in the timeless realm. Yes, indeed, the ongoing cycle of cosmos, but not in time. And therefore, time is not for the saint. Time is not for the saint, whether on earth or in heaven. Therefore, the saint can endure, for the saint is not the prisoner of time. But the sinner cannot endure. He cannot wait to expend his sinful sense and his light upon his lusts, and therefore be a prisoner twice more. Blessed ones, let not the temple be the instrument of the madness of inordinate desire. The temple is your body. For thereby some have spent what has been counted as aeons of time. And with the passage of eons, they have come to me again, only to find I change not. I am the I am. I am the eternal now. In my heart is infinite opportunity for each and every Chela of El Morya to transcend the former self, forged in a consciousness of time and little beginnings and even littler endings, that amount to be a handful of sand that the prophet does take and raise up and pour out. And the place of that man is known no more. Beloved hearts, would you rather be an endless succession, an endless succession of little beginnings and endings, or would you rather be a God in the eternal now? Ponder in your heart, for reality is just beyond the point of your nose. And what kind of a nose is it? A proud nose, an ambitious one, a gross and uncaring surfeited? And how does the nose change with the indulgences of the world, becoming thick with the imbibing of the drugs and alcohol? How does the baby become the gross and unseemly spent one in his old age, and then begin anew in a new body, in the same course, almost identical, lifetime after lifetime, never surrendering those tatters of the astral plane, surfeiting again and again? Will the eternal now eternally indulge those who waltz and dance to the fiddler's tune with time? Time is their partner on the dance floor of life. Do they perceive the decrepitude, the old age of Father Time? Do they perceive the lines in the face? Nay. The mask he wears is that of the temptress, the beautiful maidens that also come to tear me from my point of the eternal now. For in that place I perceived infinity, and there I knew the vortex as the eve in the center of the fire enfolding itself. that I was the ordinate desire of God, therefore turning and worlds circling to the center, becoming God identified, else consumed, one or the other. Thus I knew that only time could capture old age, disease, and death. Where time is not, these do not occur. Thus understand the illusion of time and weary not. For you see, those who are the prisoners of time live by the clock and the year and the day and the cycles of the moon and the rotation of the earth upon its axis and the revolutions around the sun. And these are caught. And when so many revolutions have passed, they say, I am old. I will go to rest with my fathers. Yet you, beloved, in the eternal now, may not sense such an urgency to transfer the light or to transmit the teachings. But I say, take upon you the burden of those who are prisoners of time, for compassion's sake, for love's sake. But enter not, for when you enter thus, the striking of the midnight hour, you will quickly turn into the synthetic self and lose the power of the I am to rescue, to deliver. All the world is Saint Germain's stage. Now for a moment, remain off stage. Inject light, consciousness, support to those on the stage. Allow them to see you, your face now and then. But do not join those on the world stage who dance to the tune of folly and the wearisome beat, repetition of nonsense ad nauseam. Beloved, perceive with the eye of the Savior. For I perceive you have been convinced somewhat, if not utterly, that the Savior dwells within you. How can he be the same yesterday and today and forever and still be in time? Thus, the key to adeptship is the conquering of time. Not through the ignoring or the ignorance of time, but through the fulfillment of its mandates and the transcending thereof. Thus, reach out the hand of the divine helper to those so imprisoned and realize you are emissaries of the Son. Now, we are in the center of the Sun. Those who count time are on the spheres, the outside edges that revolve around the Sun. But in the center, where is the sense of time? There is none. Can you see his picture here? Put yourself in the very center of the sun. Everything else is moving, but you're not. You're right in the very center core. It is the point of the pin that holds together a solar system, a tiny pin. There is no time in the center of being. Know this in the absolute sense. And then begin by the power of the absolute to transform thy life accordingly. Whatever then makes you the prisoner of time, consider, when will you dispense with it? For you see, if you dispense not with it through the periodic table, offering sacrifice to the Lord in the table of the elements in the wilderness, then in the end, when time does collapse, you will collapse with it and be no more. You begin to understand what I said when I began. It's time to put on your boots, for it's very hard to discern what he's talking about. Time and timelessness. He says, those wed to time die with time. Thus, take a grand accordion, section by section, measuring time. Time then by vibration and beat and note. And suddenly it collapses in a very tiny space. There is no delineation, no further sound, but in the silence of the law of the one, the player has become the all. I do not abound in metaphysical truth this day, this night. I come to give you my dissertation on 3 words of Moria. Time is not. Thus, the perception of the Buddha's heart does give to those at the point of the eye a means of escape through the lens of the eye of God. How do you move from one to the other? This is how he's doing it. I carry you far from the burdens of time and space, for perspective is all. The distance between the eye and the outer events and the eventualities is the perspective of the laser beam of the mind of God. In this perspective, I am the eternal youth. In every heart of every life stream of earth in all octaves, yet I do not fret and mourn for decay with the bodies I inhabit. I am joyous. I am silent. I am filled with laughter. I am beingness. I am at the pin in the center of the earth, motionless, perpetually in motion. I perceive beyond all Maya. I penetrate all Maya. I am beyond all conflict, and in the center thereof, I know no opposites, for I am the law of the one. I am real. My waters flow through the unreal. I move in the stars. I am unmoved, the immovable one. In the heart of Shambhala, I walk the earth through you. I make my escape from all of you. I am always absent, ever present in the point of the one, in the point of the I. So is God, the unperceived perception. So is truth, the absence of air. In the midst and the teeth of the liar, where the darkest of the dark is, there I am the most brilliant light. Thus the lie is perceived because I am there, not because I am absent. I am the Lord, your righteousness come to you with a new view in the sign of the year that is the sign of the builders. Let us not submit to the limitations of any preordained notion of length of years, term of days, lifespan, cycles of necessity for the precipitation of this or that. As I meditated on all of this, trying to find the kernel, I had to say, oh yes, let's not bow to the limitation. You know what they say now. In 12 years, the earth is going to disappear because of this or that or the other thing. We only have 12 years left, people, unless you do what we tell you you have to do. And one sends back and chuckles at the idiocy. The earth has been here millions and millions, eons of time. It has gone through many, many civilizations. And now it's going to disappear unless we do certain things that certain leaders want us to do. I remember going back, people have been saying, oh, at the turn of the century, the internet will disappear simply because all computers will be no good anymore. Yes, well, it went and we had, everything was just fine. Other times, I remember in my youth, people would say, the Lord is coming at such and such a time, we have it all figured out by biblical scriptures. And that time would come, people would go clear to the mountains and expect things happen. And then it didn't happen at all. As we begin to look at this, don't be caught up in the limitations of any preordained notion of length or years, term of days, lifespan, cycles of necessity for the precipitation of this or that. I come to declare, as I have said, ye are immortal now in the eternal now. You and I are already immortal. In the interval of the secret chamber of the heart, where the threefold flame is suspended, there is no time. Yet the being of the heart that results from the pulsation of life through the threefold flame is the marking of time, of cycles. Do you understand? Perhaps, perhaps not. I speak the law of the calculus of spirit's fire and being. And the devils laugh, and they dangle before you skeletons on Halloween, reminding you of a mortality. Stupid are they. Considering themselves clever, they march now in demonstration, in mockery, of my coming. Blessed ones, this most intense presence of life which I am the keeper of the flame of life, does evoke the antithesis, antithesis, I guess we should say it. Thus, they have accused Gautama of denying God, denying woman, denying all things, because I bear the flame of life, because I stand for life. Blessed ones, this is a night when death and hell must submit to the Son of God, who declares once and for all, I will have no part with thee. I seize my own outworn garment of death and hell, and I cast it into the furnace of Gautama Buddha. Time is the author of mortality. The fallen angels had to be consigned to time. It was the ultimate condemnation and limitation. Doesn't that make sense? Where would they be sent to if they disobeyed? They were sent to time, to a situation in which they had to be limited to time. They swore enmity with the woman, drew down her seed in the veils of time, and said, if we be prisoners of mortality, so shall they be prisoners of mortality. And then he makes a tremendous comment. They have decreed it, you must undecree it. They have decreed it, you must undecree it, you see. They have used their ill-gotten power of Fohat to declare the ultimate curse that the children of the sun should become prisoners of time. Thus, they have intensified karmic temptation, testing, as though you were caught in a snarled string, your feet all tied, and the more you would struggle, the more you would become totally entwined with the endless knotted string of karma, creating all the more with each attempt of struggle to free from it. For struggling is binding. Did you get that? The more we struggle, the more we get bound up in the struggle. Think about your life. What is it you fight most? Where is it you get caught up? The more you struggle, the more you get bound up tight. And thus liberation is the eternal now. Liberation is the eternal now. Dwell in it as in a sealed chamber, as a sphere of light suspended in the center, weightless. You are in the center, in the heart of a threefold flame, in the interval. You are in the center and heart of the threefold flame, in the interval of that secret chamber of the heart. Know the meaning then, for I tell you, within your grasp is the demonstration of the law. Within your grasp is the demonstration of this law. And its demonstration is with the utmost practicality and sensitivity to the world of time. We know no contradictions. We dominate polarities. We contain them. We subdue them. We allow not opposition, but synthesis, always of Alpha and Omega. And the serpent devouring his tail is absolute good, devouring the antithesis of absolute evil. There is no shaking hands. The serpent devours all. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God. Thus understand that God good will have all of thee, will devour thee even as the whale devoured Jonah. Yet he came out whole. He was suspended there in the belly of the whale in the sense of timelessness in the threefold flame. How can this be? It is the symbol of man entering the sacred fire, entering that spiral of Alpha and Omega, being not consumed thereby, but stepping forth the immortal one. When absolute good devours the configurations and the figures mathematical in time and space of the fallen ones, when all of this absolute evil is devoured, it is assimilated. It retains no objectivity, subjectivity, self-identity. It is masticated, it is pulverized, and it is assumed by light. It is demagnetized, and the absolute God good becomes the one. And again, time is not, space is not, but it is unnecessary. What he is describing to me here is the second death. Think about it. This is what happens when you have used up all the light and you still have not been able to become one with God. Therefore, you are put back into light. Excuse me. The flame makes all life all like itself, else leaves a pile of ash that is held in the hand of the prophet. The prophet ascended holds the ash resulting from his own cremation fires, and in his hand the ash then is the crystal white scattered to the winds. And the light and the fragrance charges the earth then with that consciousness now concentrated in these that are called the remains, yet the nucleus of a consciousness that was and is and overcome shall be permeating, transmuting matter. So shall thy remains be, as thy soul soars sunward to thy God, not dust to dust, but crystal fire mist to crystal. And the white crystal becomes the leaven in the earth. None can resist it. Enter then the center, the very center of the belly of the whale. Retain thy individuality in God. Step forth. Step forth from the flame, from the whale, from the interval. Step forth, the master of time and space in the world, not subject unto the law of sin. Sin meaning without identity in God. This is the state of sin. Thus, sin not forsaken can never be forgiven. Can I repeat these words? Sin means without identity in God is the state of sin. Thus, sin not forsaken can never be forgiven. It has bothered men over the centuries when the Bible talks about the unforgivable sin. Unforgivable sin, what is it? Well, it's actually not accepting the reality of the Holy Spirit or the Spirit of God. What he's talking about here is the same thing. As long as you don't accept and move within this reality of God, then there's no way you can get in. So as long as you feel you cannot forgive others, then you're still outside. You can see this. Without identity in God is the state of sin. Thus, the sin not forgiven, not forsaken, can never be forgiven. For as long as it is engaged in, the individual is without an identity in God that can retain forgiveness. Note, the child appeased, forgiven without penance or discipline. The child repeats again and again and again the offense. Thus, beloved, the parent who reinforces repetitive misdemeanors is truly the greater sinner of the twain. The child seeks reinforcement of the law of the one, and yet receives the reinforcement of repetitive acts of indiscretion, disrespect, self-denial. This is not the way of the true father and the true mother in heaven and on earth. Thus seize the errant son and daughter and let them know in the full fire of the eternal now the trap of time, as it is the vessel of every sin. Thus come apart and be a separate people, separate from the cycles of time. Come apart then, for the flame of forgiveness is an eternal flame. This is why it is written, his mercy endureth forever. It is the foreverness of the eternal now, self-canceling time and space. Mercy does not eternally dwell in the sinner's realm, but eternally gives the opportunity for exit from that realm. So you want to move from the realm of sin and to that oneness with the Father. It's because the mercy of God is there eternally so that you can grasp it and be able to get in. As the grass are the days of men who will not disassociate himself from unreality. So the wind passes through that grass, over it, and suddenly the place, therefore, knows it no more. Thus, time produces the self-canceling process. Canceling 10,000 cans of beer settling on the conveyor belt. There is no reinforcement of time in 1,000,000 cans of beer. That's thus why tarry in the cups of beer and in the cusps of time. The multiplication of air is the multiplication of the canceling out of those who partake thereof. I speak to the very core of self-delusion and the lie perpetuating in the liar, that is the mask and the synthetic self, and the anti-Buddha force in each one of you. I step up the sacred fire, and I make you uncomfortable in the presence of that element which, when it is immersed in sacred fire, does experience pain. Lose it. Let it go into the sacred fire, for it is the only acceptable offering that I shall receive this night. I stand ready to receive the charred self, the air self, the figure become a voodoo doll, a cheap imitation of thy Christ. I challenge you to cast it into the fire this night. And I say nothing more. O Abram, come, blessed ones, blessed one, that they might know thee in this hour before the new name given. Stand therefore in the very presence of thy life, thy strength, the fire of the eye, in the midst of adversity, as thou didst do battle with the fallen ones, did not shirk or cringe before the spacecraft, their advanced science, their threats and technology. O Abram, I desire that thou shouldst show thy soul that all may see that covenant of faith, that vision, and that acceptance of thy God as that shield, that exceedingly great reward. Let them know that thou wert as they, a prisoner of time, who broke its bounds. Come, stand. Let this record of thyself, O Moria, teach them that they are not so far thy heart. When thou didst pass thy test and offer Isaac even in the sacrifice, for no sacrifice was so great, too great for thee, even thy son, thine only son, promised, the promised one. Children of the night and the day, you may be 1,000,000 light years from the heart of Abram, or 1 inch from his victory in thyself. You are the determinate factor. You are God as he was God. He made his choice. He became the fire enfolding itself. Do not wait for events. Make them happen. Do not wait for some far distant day and a vision of some master appearing to thee in the hills. Some of you have created an extraordinary drama and self-importance that's seen when you meet Maitreya one day. In this reverie, the stage of life is missing the hand of the divine director through you. Time is not. Maitreya is here. Let us get on with the initiation. Understand the impeccable nature of the mind that steels itself against erosion, encroachment, pushed hither and thither as though upon the astral sea. You have no part with the astral unrealities. You were born free to love, to be love, free, born free to be love, born free to love life free. I am that I am. I speak now only to the real self. If you desire to speak with me, you must enter that reality. I have spoken long enough. The time concealed self. Now I make demands upon the soul. Leave it behind. Let the wind blow and blow hard, that thou mayest know thy mortality. Let the extremity and the danger of life compel the call. I will give my all and do anything that circumstance may prevail to liberate you, not to send you crushing to the rocks and down the precipice of life. The choice is one. Upward, onward, scale the heights. Do not be dismayed by elements or elemental life or elements of death and hell. Subdue them, bind them. Thou art the victor over death and hell. I proclaim it. I am the one. I am the keeper of the flame of life for earth. I counsel you by the will of thine own heart, founded upon the rock of Buddha from the beginning. I compel you to embrace your fiery destiny in the eternal now. To that light I bow, and I will have thee as thou art for my heart. Yes, it is done. Yes, it is finished. I withdraw from the flame of Shambhala in the heart of the brotherhood of Shambhala. O soul, thy story is self-told, but thou shalt live again another day to write a new history, this time of thy cosmic self. As I am God where I am, I bid you go, be God where thou art. Oh, Gautama, open the pages of understanding to us of thyself. You have gone so deep, been difficult to follow, but we shall follow, and we shall be as thou art. We only ask for your constant blessing, your constant oneness with us as we endeavor to understand the eternality of what you have shared with us this day. O Gautama, we give you ourselves. Make us as thou art. For we do ask it in your holy name and in your mastery over time and space.